So you're all very welcome. Thanks to everyone for joining us, wherever you are. Hope you're well and hope you're safe. I'm Emer Beesley. I work in the College of Arts and Humanities with Professor Liam Kennedy, who is going to give you an overview into the MA in Media and International Conflict today. I know a lot of you have been in touch over the last few months asking about the impact of COVID and how it's going to work. So I'll just give you a quick update on that before I hand over to Professor Kennedy and bring in our recent graduate, Sinead O'Donovan, who has joined us also from Phibsborough. Just to let you know, term will start on the 21st of September, no matter what. So the first semester of the next academic year is set for the 21st of September. After that, it's likely to be a blended model, if you like, where there's in-person teaching and online teaching as well. The details of that are being finalised right now, both nationally in Ireland and also by UCD in tandem. And I guess a lot will depend on the 2 1-metre discussion that is live right now. But just to let you know and to reassure you, as soon as we have answers to your questions, we will be in touch with you to finalise the details of what the next academic year will look like. So without further ado, I'll bring in Liam Kennedy and invite you all to send us your questions and your queries. You may have many. Please send them in on the chat function as we go through, and we'll take questions at the end of Liam's presentation. Liam.
All right, hi everybody. What you're seeing there is actually a section about 2/3 of our current student body, and that image was taken probably the last time we could all get together, way back in early March of this year before the pandemic hit in, standing outside our building at UCD. So I just want to tell you a little bit about the Master's Programme in Media and International Conflict, which I direct at UCD. And let me just take you through a couple of images as I do so. This is our core team, quite international. There's myself there, and I've got an interest particularly in media and US foreign policy matters. My colleague Ali Riza from Iran is someone who has great experience working with news media across the world, including with Al Jazeera and CNN. He still currently works with CNN. And Professor Lucas joining us from the UK, where he also teaches University of Birmingham, and he's also a journalist. And so what you really have with this program is an admixture of academic analysis, scholarship, but also hands-on news media production. And that's something I think that makes our program stand out a little bit. I won't go into details on the curriculum. I think you probably will have seen that online, and you've got quite a range of courses to choose from. But if you have any questions about the curriculum, please bring those up today. As I said, we include media practice as well as analytic study of media and politics and international conflict. And that means that our programs are also linked into online media programs and platforms. And you can find out more about that on our website for those of you who may have particular interest in the media practice wing of what we do. Our classes are relatively small in that they're about maybe 15 would be an average class size. It can rise to 20, 25 students. What you see in the image here would be an example of one of our MA classes in operation. And I think that being relatively small is a useful thing. It means they're very much discussion based, and everyone gets attention. Or to put it another way, there's nowhere to hide. Everyone has to talk up. We're lucky to bear the name of President Clinton, and also fortunate that he's been an occasional guest, but I simply threw up his image there because we have a strong outreach element to what we do at the Clinton Institute, and this means that we have quite a roster of visiting speakers across the year, and we very much like our students to take advantage of the opportunities to hear these speakers and to engage with them. And just finally on careers, because we're very often asked about that, and what we just put together here is just an indicator of some of the areas of employment, companies with which our former students have gone to work over the last 10 years of this program. But what I want to do now is pass you on to one of those alumni. And I'm going to go back now to Sinead, who left our program to work not that far away in Dublin, but to work in a very interesting area, and that's with the US Embassy in Dublin. So welcome, Sinead.
Thanks, Liam. Thanks a million for asking me to speak today. So yeah, as Liam said, I currently am working in Dublin. I am the Strategic Partnerships Manager at the US Embassy in Ballsbridge. It's a role I've been in now for about 4 years. I started in September 2016. So just towards the tail end of the Obama administration, and the beginning of the Trump administration. So it's been an incredibly interesting time to work at the embassy. Prior to this, I spent some time working both in Ireland and in Australia in the public affairs sector, and in the NGO sector in New York with the Clinton Global Initiative, which is something I can speak about a little later on, as that was kind of, I ended up getting a job with them on the back of the MA in UCD. So as Liam said, I am an alum. I did the Media and International Conflict MA, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I graduated in 2012. So I might just give a really, really kind of small background into how I ended up doing the MA, and then I might turn it over to any questions that anyone might have. So my Bachelor of Arts I did in DCU in International Relations, which is really interesting, but it's a very kind of broad political science degree. It looks at everything from diplomacy to political economy to development. You get a snapshot of everything, but you don't go into any one particular subject in great depth. During my international relations degree, I did not do a language. I chose American Studies instead, and the reason being is I just don't think that you can study international anything without some sort of focus on America at the minute. That was where the interest in the MA came from. The media and messaging side of foreign policy, and in particular US foreign policy, was always something I was incredibly interested in. It wasn't an area, and I don't think it's an area that's covered really anywhere in great depth other than in the Clinton Institute. It really allows you to kind of deep dive into that subject matter, which I found just really, really interesting. It's such a fascinating place to study and an area to study. It's really, really unique. Like I said, it is the only place that I can think of that goes into it in such detail. You don't get other courses that look at the historical intersection of international affairs and media in such depth. My take would be anybody that's interested in public affairs and current affairs and international relations, anything like that, this is the course for you. It's fascinating, and it ties in all of the above into kind of one really, really interesting, brilliant course. I can go into more detail, but I know that Emer said that there may be some Q&A, so I'd be happy to answer any particular questions.
Yeah, could you talk us through some of the practical tips that you learned versus the academic, and what was that mix like?
Sure, yeah. So you've obviously got the hard skills, the research writing, and that kind of thing. But for me, the most important thing that I learned in this MA was definitely the critical thinking side of things. It gives you a really good insight into how news is produced, around messaging, around public diplomacy, and what the value of that is. It's not something that I've come across even in the undergrad in international relations. It's not something that I've come across in that. And I think it's become increasingly important and increasingly interesting the further away from the MA I have become. The spread of social media, the use of online journalism and things like that has become even more prevalent since 2012 when I graduated. So the ability to kind of digest articles and media appropriately, to recognize sources, to understand the underlying message, and more broadly to understand the kind of international link between a news item that might come up in the US and something that's happening possibly in the UK. I found that really it's just increasingly relevant and increasingly important. I would add just to that as well that, I mean, the last 2 or 3 months have shown that have cast a greater spotlight on that more than anything. You've seen misinformation and disinformation grow and grow and grow. And I think that the ability to recognize that is just so important. And that's something that this course really focuses on. And I do think it was a real kind of early starter in that. Like I said, when I was looking at masters, I didn't find anywhere else that looked at that intersection of media and of foreign policy in such depth. And it's proved to be increasingly useful as time has gone on for me.
That's great. And what was it like for you progressing from undergraduate, Sinead, to graduate studies? What was the difference in your view?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, I did international relations, and it gives you a snapshot of multiple different areas that are related but can be quite disparate as well. When you do an MA, I think any MA, but I can speak specifically to this one, you do deep dive into the subject matter. So it means that you're working and studying an area and a subject matter that you're really, really interested in to begin with. And it allows you kind of to explore all the little individual pockets within that. And if there's particular kind of areas or geographic areas or academic areas within that subject that you're interested in, it gives you the ability to do that when you move on to an MA. Something that I found just unique to the Clinton Institute as well was the kind of level of support and the flexibility that you're given with that. So obviously Liam and everybody out there are there as a kind of guiding hand, but they do very much give you the independence to pick the areas that you're interested in and the stories that you want to look into in greater depth, and they're really supportive of that as well.
And can I ask you, Sinead, what was your class like? What sort of people were on the course? What was the class size, and what sort of different backgrounds were people from?
Yeah, the class, it was great. It was a really kind of eclectic mix. You get people from all parts of the world, from different academic backgrounds, from different professional backgrounds, which really kind of adds to the mix of the class. It opens you up to perspectives from different people, which again is incredibly useful when you're studying something like foreign policy and media messaging, which you are in this MA. And that kind of is two-pronged. So you've got people from different parts of the world that can give entirely different worldviews and different perspectives on things that you may never have thought of. And then the different academic and professional backgrounds as well. It kind of, it's a wealth of knowledge, and it's all right there in front of you. The other thing I'll add is that the classes are actually quite small, which is brilliant because it means that it's almost like each class is like a group discussion rather than it being overwhelming and intimidating and you're in a massive lecture theatre. It definitely adds to the discussion in class. And it means that you kind of are closer as a group, and it's much easier to learn from one another as well. So those two elements, just the mix in people and the class size, I just found hugely beneficial. I came from an undergraduate course that had a much bigger class, and the difference in the two, you definitely benefit more from that kind of smaller, more attentive style of class.
And one final question, if I may, Sinead, and thank you for being so generous with your time. How do you think this MA helped you get into your career?
I suppose, first of all, it's just the skills that you learned that I touched on earlier. They've just become increasingly important, I think. First of all, in the immediate, straight after I finished the MA, I actually completed an internship at the Clinton Global Initiative in New York, which was hugely beneficial. It kind of changed my career trajectory, definitely. I got that internship because I studied at the Clinton Institute. So that link, I mean, that's just the most obvious example I can think of. And then the experience of that kind of led on to everything else that's happened afterwards. So that was NGO work, but it was on a completely international scale. After that, I moved into the public affairs area, and it offers a hugely beneficial skills when it comes to that. In terms of understanding kind of policy formation and implications, also with regards to communications and stakeholder management. All of these things are touched on in the MA, and they're really transferable skills. They're incredibly flexible, and they open you up to a really broad range of different kind of jobs and things like that. Then obviously, ultimately, in the job that I'm in now is with the US Embassy, and I work in the area of public diplomacy and soft power. So I don't know if you could get something that's more linked to the subject matter of that MA, but again, I wouldn't have gotten any of those jobs without the skills and the context that I got from doing the MA in the Clinton Institute.
That's fantastic to hear. And just very curious myself, because I drive by the iconic building so often and I've never had the pleasure to be inside. What's it like to work in the US Embassy in Dublin?
It's great. It's incredibly interesting. Like I mentioned at the very beginning, I don't know, whatever your opinion might be on the country itself, I don't know if you can be interested in or work in the area of international affairs without focusing on the US in some manner. It is the global superpower, and it has been for decades now. So to be able to work in the US Embassy here, it really kind of brings in that element of international affairs, because everything that you're working on has a kind of international impact and outlook and things like that. You're also dealing with that intersection of Irish and US diplomacy, which is incredibly interesting, particularly given the strength and the history of the relationship. So it's great that I work in the public affairs section, so the breadth of things that we work on is fascinating as well. We might be doing something with a NASA astronaut one week and then working on a presidential visit the next week, and so on and so forth. So you really kind of cover all bases. You do a lot of really interesting kind of cultural work on top of policy work as well. And so it's a great place to work, given that I did that MA, because it really does feed directly into what I studied.
Thank you very much, Sinead. Really appreciate you coming in to talk about the MA. I might hand back to you, Professor Kennedy. Is there anything you'd like to add, or any closing thoughts?
Well, we're very happy to take questions from students, not only today, but every day. We're in a very unusual position, all of us now, with the pandemic. And it means that our programs remain open. It means that we are very happy to discuss students' interests on various platforms. So we can do it this way, we can do it by Skype, or we can do it by telephone. So we're just here, we're available, the communications are open, and we're looking forward to seeing students in September. As you said, teaching begins on the 21st. We'll be there.
That's great. Thank you, Professor Kennedy. And I've just added your email address, liam.kennedy@ucd.ie, in the chat box there. So please feel free to make contact with Liam Kennedy directly if you have any queries, or if you'd like to set up a Skype or a call, or whatever will help you on your journey as you prepare to take this course. So thank you all very much for joining us. Wherever you are, hope you're well and safe, and do keep in touch over the coming weeks and months, and we look forward to welcoming you to UCD on September 21st.